it will get easier now, not in terms of content and not psychologically easier, because we'll be entering Stalinism, and our next few sessions will have to do how did people cope living in a dictatorship like that. And today, so actually I'm going to finish that thought. So we will start with Moshe Kulbak, who actually was a poet. So in the back on that table over there, I made you also photocopies from the Penguin edition of Yiddish verse, which is bilingual. Some of you have studied with me before, actually own this, so you don't need to get it. But get yourself a copy of the Kulbak poems, and you will be expected to read some manyanas. So it will get easier in terms of our really trying to focus on one writer. I also made a copy of the train grid. So you see where the trains were going. That goes back to Eisenbahngeschichte, and it gives you also a map. So you see what is where in relation to what. So if you get that set of handouts, that would be perfect. And then we'll meet in January focusing on Kulbak. So my apologies that it was a lot of reading for today. It is really, this is the most important session in this course, because we will be talking about the transition from the 19th century to the Soviet Union. We are going to talk about the period 1903 to 1921, which saw the total destruction of the traditional Russian world. You read Bunin about that, Sukhadol, which we'll be talking about that. And it's also the total destruction of the Jewish world. And some, for the Russians, of course, 1917 was the cataclysmic year. And for the Jews, 1903 was a cataclysmic year. There is no way to exaggerate the meaning, the relevance of the year 1903 and the Kishinev pogroms. So we will talk today about, there will be two different parts to our course today. We will talk about Chaim Nachman Bialik's poem, In the City of Slaughter, and then we will look at three memoirists, the work of Ivan Bunin, the work of Vladimir Jabotinsky, and of Isaac Babel. You will probably not believe me when I say, when I picked these three texts, it did not occur to me that those were all memoirs. Those are all works that are written from a rather safe distance about something that had occurred 20 years ago. It's actually astonishing. So I picked them because these are the most significant writers that deal with that gap. But if you're thinking about that, it's really extraordinary in the way that these writers, even though they are modernists, are actually all memoirs in their own way. So we will be talking first about Chaim Nachman Bialik's poem, In the City of Slaughter, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce in Hebrew. We have a Hebrew speaker present. Dorit will be talking about this in a little while. I would not have started with that poem had it not been for Rabbi Gardenschwartz's email, which I found extraordinarily striking. So you got an email on December 8th, and as you know, Shira Goodman's mom died, so they had to go off Sechila in Israel. And so this email read, "My charming and beloved Settler cousins with a gun in their back pocket. Shira and I have two first cousins who live in the territories. They are our age. One has 7 children and 4 grandchildren. The other has 8 children and 20 grandchildren. One of their daughters, late 20s, has 3 sons, ages 5, 3, and 1, and expecting the 4th child in April. Her husband was at the Shiva. He was carrying in his back pocket a handgun. I asked his father-in-law, my cousin, why the handgun? He explained, they live in a somewhat remote outpost settlement. They need to self-defend. When I heard the word self-defend, I was thinking, Jabotinsky. What's going on? If you read this as a literary text, how does this text work? What's going on here? What's going on in that text? What does it do to you? What are the elements that make this text work as a political text, which is what it is, which is what Bialik's poem is as a political text? What happens here? What can you pick up? What strikes you? He's a great writer, Rabbi Gartenschwartz. He's a great writer. What's happening? What are the key things? What are you picking up?
That his world
Self-defense.
his world is very different. He doesn't understand the self-defense, and he's having trouble understanding these people.
No, we're not talking about Rabbi Gartenschwartz. We're talking about the text. What's going on here? We're talking about the text. I don't care about him. I don't mind, but we're not talking about it. We're talking about this as a literary text. What are the keys? You are now educated to be critical writers. What works on you? How does this text work on you? What are the clues here? Okay, come on guys, I already put it in red. My charming, beloved cousin with a gun. There is a contrast between charming and gun. A charming man doesn't carry a gun. A man who has all these children and grandchildren doesn't carry a gun. I sound like him all of a sudden. He doesn't carry a gun. What's with the gun? Okay, our session today is about how the gun got into the back pocket of a Jew. Okay, we come back to this. So now we're going to go talk about Jews with guns. A Jew with guns? There is a tension here. Did we already have this subject before? Jews, soldiers? Oh, we did. Turgenev, do you remember? Okay, we already had the subject, Jews and soldiers, Jews and guns. Where?
First one.
What do you mean first one? Come on, a little bit more, John.
It's foreign.
Okay, Benjamin, okay, he says, hey, you don't want me in the military. We're nothing. And we like that because it means this is, it's Hamish the Jew. We like this gun. Not we like this gun. We like the son of the gun. We like this man because they are not violent. Okay, so now let's talk about Jews with guns. An idea whose time came in 1903. If you think about that, if you think about the history of the Jews between 1096, which what was in 1096? The First Crusade. Okay, from the First Crusade to we talked about the pogroms of 1881, 1883, 1882, 83, and 84. Not one Jew picked up a gun ever. What does this mean to the people who attack you? What happens? They say, hey, there's no downside to that, I can do that. So the things that happen within a context. We looked at Turgenev. You remember the weak, effeminate, ridiculous Jew? The one, okay, we talked about Mendele, we talked about Benjamin, we talked about his self-defense, we talked about how he is aggressive with words, so they're actually glad to get rid of him. We talked about being ridiculous, the ridiculous Jew. The ridiculous Jew is a Jew who's defenseless. That was, and we talked about it, a stereotype, a well-established, well-known, everywhere published, everywhere read stereotype. This was what is. A Jew with a gun is not thinkable. In fact, the Russians did not want the Jews to serve in the military because they thought they were ridiculous, couldn't handle it, were weak, were effeminate, couldn't learn how to shoot a gun, and just were basically unwilling to do it. That is the basics. Okay, and then we come to the turning point, the two-day pogrom in Kishinev in April 1903. I'm sorry, I have to always go over there. What happened in the pogrom? What actually happened? How did it work? Because the last pogrom, thank God, was already 19 years earlier, in 1884. Okay, so the first thing that happened was there was a Jewish paper, Bessarabetz, an anti-Semitic paper called the Bessarabian, which for months had been running articles, death to the Jews, curse to the Jews should go to hell, the crusade against the hated race. So that was the major paper in this particular area, in Kishinev and the outlying areas. The trigger for the pogrom was that a Christian Ukrainian boy by the name of Mikhail Rybachenko was found killed in a small outlying area. and about 15 miles from Kishinev, and the accusation was that he had been murdered because the Jews were eating his blood for months of baking. At the same time, a girl had been declared dead in a Jewish hospital because she'd taken poison. Those two were coming together. That too was thought to be because the Jews wanted, I don't know why if they take poison and you want to take the blood, it doesn't make any, but in the presence of a stereotype, logic doesn't really make that much sense. And then, of course, there were articles in the newspaper, and Kishinev sported the largest Russian Orthodox seminary. So, of course, there too, there was a bishop who was an anti-Semite who was also stoking public opinion. So you had a really extraordinary brew there. The events, it was Easter Sunday, April 19th, so it's actually our calendar, April 19th, so a mob was raging through the streets. 47 Jews were killed, actually 49, I think is the number that's really established now. 92 were severely wounded, 500 Jews were injured, 700 homes were destroyed, and 600 stores were looted. Kishinev was a town of how many people? 125,000. 44% of whom were Jews, which gives us a number of what? 40,000 Jews, 30,000 Jews? Okay.
More.
So, yeah, more. Okay, you do the math. Okay, so I'm being very conservative here because it always says, okay, 30,000 Jews were living here. And this is what it looked like. Okay, this is what a house looks like after, this is Kishinev 1903, after it's been looted. These are the kids, 5 of the kids who were killed, 1 girl who was raped and killed, and here are the guys. Okay, this is the reality of it. This is the reality of it. Sorry. Okay. Okay, and then there is Bialik. Okay, so here's what happened. This is probably the first pogrom ever to be covered by the press. The Americans sent people in, the British sent people in, the Hearst paper sent money in, the journalists came. It was well reported. In Odessa was a historical committee. It was run by Simon Dubnov, a historian, and he sent Bialik there. And Bialik spent about a month in the city and did his research, and then went off because he couldn't take more, but really interviewed the victims, went off, and instead of writing an article, he wrote this poem. And the poem sent a shockwave through those areas of Jewish society who could read Hebrew. I've talked to Elisa already a little bit. Poem is very difficult. Nurit will talk in a minute about what this poem means in Israeli society. It became the key poem. It galvanized the Zionists, but only after Jabotinsky had translated it into Russian. That was the key. It was like fire then. So what is the poem? How did you read it, and what you make of it? David. And then after we get macro comments, I'm going to ask Nurit to talk about the significance of the poem in Israeli society. Okay, David.
There's so much going on in this poem, and yet the thing that stands out immediately, it's like the elephant in the room, is the cowardice of the males.
Cowardice of the males. Which you could now say, after what we just said, feeds into
The stereotypes.
of the effeminate, cowardly Jew. That was incendiary. It was like throwing a bomb. And that was the reaction Jabotinsky also came. Jabotinsky came away from Kishinev and said, this isn't going to happen anymore. So, Nurit, jump in here. Tell us about what's the significance of this poem in Israeli society, and is it still read in schools, and how do you deal with the language, and tell us a little bit how the poem works as a poem in Hebrew, and then we go look at one of those passages, and I need to say, there was a self-defense in Kishinev. We know that, right? We know that on the second day, 250 Jews banded together. It wasn't very effective, but there were some. But we still need to talk why Bialik did not pick up on it. Okay, Nurit, tell us a little bit about this poem in Israeli
So first
society?
of all, at school, this was part of the regular codex. We had to study Bialik and Chernyakhovsky. And there were three major poems by Bialik that we studied. And this is like, and this one was the poem, The City of Slaughter, which is Hebrew in Be'ir HaRiga. The second one is Amatnid, which is the learned. And then there was one more, Al HaShchita, which is on the slaughter. Be'ir HaRiga is really translated to the city of murder. Al HaShchita is on slaughter, but it doesn't matter.
Okay, so just
Okay.
to clarify that, that is the kosher slaughtering of animals, not slaughter in that, but the shechita. And in fact, it begins with the formula
But here
for the
the-
shechita.
But the name of this song is not Shchita.
But not in this one.
It's the other
Our poem is in the city of murder, basically.
Exactly.
Right.
Is it murder? Doesn't
Yeah.
murder just mean killing?
Murder is killing, להרוג is to kill.
Yeah, to kill.
It's not לרצוח.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
The shorter poem
But
that
you
we
see,
did not
again-
read begins with the formula of the shechita, and that actually is the poem that he wrote first. This is the poem to get his energy out. He wrote the shechita poem first, and then the second one.
But to answer,
was-
yeah, it is in the city of killing, but in the context of what we read, it's, you know, the killing is translated in your mind to the slaughter. But, so, what I just wanted to say that when I went to school, it was, let's say, late 60s, 70s, and this is high school in Israel, and this was a must. It was not, it was also, it is a very long poem, clearly. We do study, I heard before, I don't think there's any problem of reading the text for Hebrew speakers. It may be, if it is not your first language, it's a different story. But if you grow up and, you know, although, of course, there are connotations to Daniel and for, you know, biblical Hebrew, but it doesn't mean it that this is a foreign language at all. It adds to the meaning of it. I just want to say that this was being read. There were many times that there are memorials in Israel for many causes, and clearly in Holocaust Day or anything of this sort, this was read. This is what I want to tell you. This was read with another poem by Alterman, which is Al Magash HaKesef. There were two poems. So parts of this and parts of, and just to say Al Magash HaKesef, it means that the country was not given to you on a tray of silver. The other one was this. And this sums up the real justification of Israel.
Right.
Whatever we are doing, whatever happened, is all justified because this
Right.
is our only way. We are the reason that the Jewish people can exist.
Wow.
So that said, historically, because my father was born in Israel, my father was born in Jerusalem, and he was in the Haganah. For them, it was a mantra, it was a motto. I can say that everybody in the Haganah was citing this poem.
Wow.
So the Haganah is the underground. So it's very much part of the, you know, the, like I say, the pulse of the blood of what does it mean to be an Israeli in the sense of this sabre and the sense of the one who is, you know, who has a weapon, who will protect, that we will never be killed. And clearly, in the context of the Holocaust, this became, in some ways, also a way of anger and saying that actually there is no more God.
So basically, just
there is
a
no
kind
more
of
God.
release.
It's the people.
Wow. So it's interesting enough to say that actually Bialik never saw the state of Israel. He died in 1934. And can I ask a question? From the,
But he
not
is
the
our
whole
national
poem, not the whole poem was
But
read.
he
Could
lived in
you,
Israel. I mean, he lived in
He lived
parents
in Israel.
Israel.
He lived in Israel, yeah. And my father was born in Israel. It was still Palestine. It was under the
yeah,
Ottoman
obviously.
Yeah,
I mean, and he
1913.
established a publishing house, and he actually went there, and then he left Odessa in 1921, and he was, you know, really committed to Palestine to Zionism. Okay, I have a question about when a section of the poem was read. Do you remember what section you guys
Yes,
were
I
reading?
can tell you
Okay,
exactly.
because that is
because I
going to go
marked
to the
it.
last point on that and move on to our memoirs and we're going to go look
I
at
can
that.
tell you,
poem.
it's not, it's like parts of the poem. So
Yeah,
for
so
example,
which is the section that you guys read?
it's even just like the slayers flew, the blossom burst, and it was sunny weather. Everybody knew it's a Shemesh Zohar.
Okay, so on the first page, almost down, okay.
It's
The
the
slayers
first one.
flew, the blossom first, and it was sunny weather.
And clearly
Unbelievable.
it's not written this way, it's because it's actually
Right.
more powerful in Hebrew because it's the
Sure.
sun first, then it's the blossom of this, and then the shochet, and then the
Oh,
slaughter.
okay.
It's
All right, so here's one of those, what you
it's-
pointed out,
It's
one of
kind
those translations that Abram, that Clyde just really turned around.
yeah,
Wow,
and then when he say the אתה גם אתה בן אדם, okay, this is, I'll tell you where. Okay.
That's in there a couple of times.
Right, yeah, because
Okay.
of Ezekiel.
Yeah.
So the thing that was there ever a point made when you guys were studying that about connecting it to the book of Ezekiel?
Everybody knew about it.
Everybody knew that, okay.
knew it, you know, that he's walking, but it's clearly, there it is the temple, and here
Right,
it is what
okay.
kind of temple. So, and clearly it's a prophetic style. And, but what kind of a prophet? The prophets are supposed to be quiet, and actually the silence is the one instead of speaking. And then, you know,
So the interesting point about the Jabotinsky translation is, of course, that he took out all biblical references. There is not a one biblical reference in the Russian translation. Evgeny, did you study that? Okay, the Jabotinsky translation is entirely secular.
yes.
Okay, the point that needs to make about the reception of this poem was, it was not the cowardice of the men only. It was, there's another theme that's hiding in there that we talked about, those who studied Yiddish literature with me, is it was that the wealthy got themselves to safety first. The wealthy people, as always, as we had it in the drafting into the army, the wealthy were hiding in their houses, and the brunt was borne by the poor. That was one thing. It wasn't just a cowardice. The second thing that got people really upset are the references to that the women who were raped, the men later go to the rabbis and ask,
Yeah.
is my wife permitted?
Yeah.
That was the other thing. So this was read as an attack by a secular Jew on the religious commitment, which leads to passivity, which was a call to arms to becoming more secular. So the poem was actually read in a context of a call to arms to dump God and to become more active, not to self-defend because of all the biblical references, but because you had a right to life. If there was ever a renaissance, an intellectual renaissance in Jewish life, a turn to secularism, a turn to do it yourself, self-defense, then that was the call to arms. The major element that stood out for most Jews who were reading, especially this poem in Russian, was the rape of the women. That was extremely bothersome, and nobody got over that. And for that reason, the poem became so extraordinary. And here is now the poem. This is actually the poem that Jabotinsky put the preface as a preface. When he did the translation into Russian, he prefaced it with a poem of his own. Once in that town, under a heap of garbage, I noticed a piece of parchment, a scrap from a torn Torah scroll. I picked it up and carefully removed the dirt. 2 words stood out, Be'eretz Nachriya, in a foreign land. This scrap of parchment I nailed above the door to my home, for in these 2 words, out of the book of Genesis, he's wrong, he had Exodus, he had no biblical education, is told the entire story of this pogrom. This is the key to Zionism. Be'eretz Nachriya is the key to the pogrom. If you don't have your own state and an army to defend it, The pogroms will happen new time and again. So this is the founding moment, really, here in Kishinev, by a guy who lived in Odessa, is the kernel, really, of Zionism. So now here, we are 100 and odd years later, and we get this poem at the Shiva, you know, like we're sitting over someone who's dead in the land of Israel. They are our age. One has 7 children and 4 grandchildren. The other has 8 children and 20 grandchildren. One of their daughters has 3 sons and expecting a 4th. Her husband was carrying in his back pocket a handgun. I asked his father-in-law, my cousin, why the handgun? He explained they live the Eretz Nachriya. It's the only thing I changed. In a somewhat remote Ausgrund, they need to self-defend. It's the same poem. But the undercurrent is very different because we live in America. And where you live depends on how you read something. It's stunning. The same textual items.
I have a question too.
No Israeli will read it the way we did it right now.
It's right there.
No, because it is a settler. It's not the issue for Jew. It's not it's complex. It's a part of Israel now that we know that if you go there, everybody wears their guns, but they can have a choice. They can be in.
This poem
In
was
other
written by a rabbi.
No, I know.
So I am just presenting it as a modern version, and you can see, what I'm saying is, what you can see is that the themes that we have been establishing in a literature far away, 120 years ago, those themes are with us because we are living in this endangered situation right now. And we need to grapple with it. And that literature from Odessa, from Kishinev, really isn't very far away. It's our reality right this second. And we grapple with this. And the literary devices are the same. That's really all I wanted to say about that, because I can't say more because it's my show. So, it's clear, right? But it's a great poem, and you can see I just made it a little denser. I took out some words, and it's a fantastic poem.
I mean, Wes is very proud of Tzahal and its great achievement. So,
Oh, absolutely.
so
I'm not knocking this at all.
right, okay.
I'm not knocking this at all. I'm pointing out, and this is really important, that the issues that the Odessa Jews grappled with are our issues today. It is very hard to justify because we rejoice with Benjamin Gesserit. We rejoice that we don't have a gun. We rejoice that we don't need it. But our situation is existential. So what I'm saying is that the Bialik poem is essential to us. This poem is essential to us. And we need to cope with that by thinking about that. So I'm saying that the Jews of Russia are not far. They're in this classroom every day.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
Did when you said they read them in all the schools, even the Orthodox girls' schools?
That was actually my question.
I don't know
interesting.
Orthodox people. Until I came to this country, I never set my foot in a temple, in the Knesset.
So
Never.
you don't know whether they have this in their education?
Of course, it's public education, so it depends who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Kibbutz Rugot, one is the neat one, this is the same, similar system.
Mhm.
But I have no idea.
But not Beis Yaakov.
I have no idea.
Okay, so now comes a word from our sponsor, which is Prince Sergei Dmitrievich Urusov. Did I say this right? Urusov?
Yep.
Genia?
Yes.
Urusov. Okay. He was governor at that time, and he wrote a book on the Kishinev pogrom, in which the Kishinev pogrom does not appear. Okay? He writes about the preparatory and up to March, and then all of a sudden he begins this chapter 4, the threat of massacres of the Jews, pogroms, arrival of an English diplomat. There's no description of the Kishinev pogrom, but this is what he has to write, and this is what you need to really listen to get a sense of what it was like to think like a Russian. I'm reading a little bit more than I put on the board here. The foreign press, especially the English and American, continued to comment in various ways upon the Kishinev pogrom. Then, as now, the Jews were credited with great influence in the press of Western Europe and America. But the interest manifested at that time towards Kishinev by the English Parliament and American statesmen can scarcely be explained by attributing it to Jewish efforts alone. The great uneasiness called forth in St. Petersburg in the summer of 1903 by the news of the expected interpolation in the British Parliament concerning the relations of the Russian government to the pogrom, and the diplomatic actions that became necessary with America in order to relieve the Tsar from receiving the grandiose address of the Americans requesting his protection of the Jews from further massacres, showed clearly that outside of Russia, large groups of the population and even the government of the great powers found it impossible to acquiesce in the antiquated methods of settling old scores with a hated race as manifested in Kishinev. Wow. Does that knock your socks off?
Yeah.
It's an antiquated method of settling old scores with a hated race. That's the governor.
Right, clearly, new methods were needed for settling the scores.
Right. Okay. So that was Kishinev, and we are coming to what is more fun. I want to talk a little bit, if you would. I don't know how present you have it. A little bit about Bunin's Suchadol, because it connects for us to Salikov. Can you switch? Is it okay? Do you have the text present? Okay. Let me hear how you read that. What did it do to you? How did you read that? So this is an extraordinary, really extraordinary writer. This is the literary history. That's all you need to know of the literary history. So Bunin was an aristocrat. In 1895, he met Chekhov in Moscow. Absolutely fell in love with him. This is the Chekhov right before the Seagull. The Seagull flopped in 1896. After that, Chekhov got very sick, and he stayed his lifelong friend. He absolutely adored Chekhov. Gorky, this is Gorky, was a central literary figure at the time. Gorky already adored Chekhov. So those two guys became friends with each other. In fact, Gorky had to go into exile. He had a house on Capri. So if you read The Gentleman from San Francisco, Bunin knows Capri really well because he spent the summers 1912, 13, and 14 in Capri visiting Gorky. And when Bunin he wrote poetry for a very long time. And Bunin wrote his first piece of prose, which was about the village. It's called the Revnia. Was just called the village. It was a piece of prose that realistically described what is it like to live in a village in the 19th century. Gorky called Bunin the greatest writer after Chekhov, maybe even greater than Chekhov, which was an extraordinary compliment. They stayed friends until the revolution came in 1917. Gorky decided for the revolution, and Bunin decided to leave, became an exile, decided to go for the White Army. Gorky was a friend of the Jews. He was born in Nizhny Novgorod. In 1884, when Gorky was 16 years old, there was the last pogrom of that series, 1881 to 84, took place in Nizhny Novgorod, and he saw it, he witnessed it. And from that moment on, he was committed to the Jews. In 1904, he actually contacted Sholem Aleichem. I mean, we remember that those two guys are really have parallel tracks. We talked about that last time. And said to him, tell me, how can we bring Yiddish literature to Russian readers? How is this going to work? And Sholem Aleichem tried to think of a couple of ways of doing that. And then in 1917, he broke with Bunin, and in 1916, Baba came to St. Petersburg and became actually the new mentee of Gorky. So these four guys, these are all connected to each other. So Suchadol, what happens? What's important about this? How did you read this? What you make of this really extraordinary piece of memoir? It was written in 1912. At that time, he had been a long time away from Suchadol. What happens in that piece of? Did you like that piece of prose? I mean, it's like, you know, if you read about the Jews, this is like a vacation. Like to some degree. I mean, it's none of the intensity and none of the suffering that we have to put ourselves through.
It's different suffering.
It's a different kind of suffering, yes. And it's about a woman. It's extraordinary. And then writes with great empathy about this Natalia. So what happens? What's going on here? Let me hear your voice a little bit because I've been talking a lot.
I was
Yeah.
more entranced after some of the other things that even had I not known he was a poet, I would have said some of the writing is so poetic.
Absolutely. The descriptions of landscapes, the description of the house, the description of smells. Yeah, he's a poet, okay. You can see that in that he appreciates the physicality of things. But what about the kind of narrative that we have here, which is very different from what we know? I mean, if you're rearing to go into Babel and Jabotinsky, we will do that. But so if you're telling me by 3 assignments, we're about to talk about something else, we'll do that.
Well,
Did.
I just have to contrast it with the Golovio
Yeah.
saga in that Bunin has so much more sympathy for his characters. He still sees it as a tragedy, and yet somehow I feel like he feels emotionally connected to them, even though
Even to this Natalia, who is not from his family, right? To me, I have to say, so the entire story, it's 9 chapters, is really, really tightly constructed in a way that it is told out of memory. But to me, the story was contained in the first and last sentences of chapter 1. And I wonder if you could, if you see it similarly. And there are 2 sayings really from Russian proverbs. They say a wolf is always looking to the woods, no matter what you feed it. How does it apply to that story of Natalie? So what was it then, and this is now the narrator, okay, at the end of this chapter, that so suddenly drew us all toward that barren pasture, to those huts and ravines, the ruined manor house of Suchadol? What is it? What is it? What are we learning about what the so-called Russian soul, I hate using that term, but I think in this case, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that. Did you read Bunin when you went to university there?
No, he was there on a bench. He was not Soviet writer in history.
Okay.
So
Okay, so he was not part of the canon, not like Saltykov, not the canon. Wow, because he died in Paris in 1953, got the Nobel Prize in 1933. Obviously, it was a political prize at the time. Okay, so you did not read him. So what is it about? What is it? It's very important to understand it. Why does Natalia go back?
Attachment to the land, to the place.
So strange, no? Where she got abused?
It
That's
was
home.
the
How does it
family,
work?
the
That's
family,
home.
the people.
Even
Because
the
it is
Gola
home.
lives.
Because it is home. Okay, and here you have, okay, so you have a literature in Russia at the same time that we're getting the Zionist literature in which the major value, even if it pains you, is home, which is precisely what the Jews did not have. So, okay, now we have the literatures coming closer together. Jews write in Russian, but the one thing that they don't have, that they don't connect to, is this value. A wolf will always go to the woods, no matter what you feed it. Okay, you cannot be displaced because there's something about even the pain that you suffer somewhere that will pull you back. Okay, it's a perfect segue. We could do more on Sukhadol, which I happen to love and see and play with the structure and do all of that, but I'd love to go and talk about Jabotinsky. Okay, Jabotinsky. So here is a guy who grew up speaking only Russian. He had no biblical education. He even thinks that one of the quotes that he found was from Genesis, one is from Exodus. And he taught himself Russian and Hebrew and Yiddish in 1902, 1903. He became fluent, gave talks in Hebrew. I'm very jealous. I wish I could. In Yiddish, and he was a fantastic orator and dedicated to the cause. And then in 1935, when he's long gone from Odessa, he writes this memoir.
Is he going home by writing that memoir?
I think so. I think that's a good way to do it. It's a home, it's the kind of home that's the only home we had until the State of Israel, the home in literature. Okay, but you know, he's not a sentimentalist, this Jabotinsky. He's a political writer. So what's he telling us here? Okay, John.
Well, you wrote it was the Sholem Aleichem Tevye story, but among the more literate in the city dwellers. And until I think you wrote that in one of your.
Oh, yeah.
So that'll help me because I didn't see that until you said it. You know, to think.
You didn't see this like a Tevye story?
No.
My
No,
gosh. Okay, so I'm going to tell you. Okay, oh my gosh, I
No,
didn't know.
because I saw him more telling a story about, these are the five are the types. The five are the types of
Right, so you've
Jews.
got, okay, so in Tevye, okay, first of all, I would say, the Tevye story is a story told from the perspective of the father, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, about the also ungrateful children, he wants, he's putting himself out, and we empathize with this guy who's losing all the kids. Okay, to my mind, I don't know if you read it the same way, to my mind, the mother, Anna Mikhailovna, is the heroine of the story, like Tevye. It's extraordinary, really. And we take her point of view as we're going through the lives of these five children who are. Okay, you tell me, I don't have to tell you this. Okay, so in Tevye, the five daughters represent just five historical developments in Russian Jewish relations, would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right, good. Is it very different in this book?
No. Well, I see that. I can see what you're getting at, but it doesn't give the same feeling at all, to me.
I think
Okay, but let's do a little bit more. Teach me a little bit more about that.
maybe it doesn't give the same feeling because the people here, whereas in Tevye, I think the people do something for almost better reasons, let's call it that way. And these are kind of really ne'er-do-well characters.
They have what kind of characters?
Ne'er-do-well.
Oh, ne'er-do. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know.
Russian too? My Russian?
They're all sophisticated.
They're very something. Okay, of course, we are not in rural, whatever
Okay,
he
so the
was,
city,
Kryzhrilivka. Okay, we're not in Kryzhrilivka. We are in Odessa. And this
And
is
they're not innocents. None of them is an innocent.
They seem decadent.
Okay,
Yeah.
They seem narcissistic.
because it's our two guys actually. So just to give you an idea of where we are, let's go look at some pictures. But I want to push you a little bit more on that, okay? About what is it about these children. So let's look while I'm showing you some pictures of Odessa. You think about what more you can do with this novel. I just want to point out so that our guy Babel grew up here. This is in Nikolaev up there. So it's very close to Odessa. So he came at age 11 to here. Jabotinsky was actually born in Odessa. You can see this is actually Jabotinsky with his family. You see, this is the kind of types that you have to imagine. This is a little bit later, 1919, have to imagine that he's writing about. And here is the musical theater in Odessa. I mean, Odessa was wealthy, sophisticated, with an opera house. My gosh, the story begins in an opera house. Everybody can see the French pictures, you know, with the lorgnon. We have actually one in the MFA, looking in the different boxes, looking, this could be set in Paris. The opera house is not the opera house, this is the theater today. This is from the side. This is actually a postcard sent in 1905. And it's in French, of course. A postcard sent in Odessa would not be written in Russian. It would be written in French. Je suis très étonnée que vous n'essayez pas répondre à ma lettre et la bonté, and then she continues down there, de m'envoyer 2 ou 3 affiches and then she mentions the whatever advertisement she wants, and then she says, merci d'avance, and then her name is Noisette. Noisette. It has to be, you know, Noisette. This is Odessa, 1905 for you. This is the Ministry of Justice, was of course with a church, and this is the famous, all right, the famous steps. This is on top of the steps now. This is Monsieur Richelieu, the harbor, Pushkinskaya. This is Bazanaya. Bazanaya was a Jewish street, Bazanaya. This is the house in which Simon Dubnov lived, 15 Bazanaya. This is the school this is the building that had, Abramovich's school was in there. This is Bazanaya 91. So I'm sorry, this is the way it looks now, but this is the building where that housed the Talmud Torah in 1884. That's a little bit closer, and this is what it looked inside. This is our guy Abramovich, and then we're already here at Baba, and we'll talk about Baba in a second. So I'm gonna just go back to something really pretty. Okay, Pushkinskaya. Okay, so Odessa. Okay. You know, I'm sure this is not the shtetl. Of course not. So let me pick up from your comment before. What's with these kids, the ne'er-do-wells? What, are you bothered by these guys? What's happening with these guys? Who are these? What? Okay, let's just go through their fates. What are their fates? Marco. I mean, it's deeply moving. What is with this Marco, and why? What does he represent, and who is he, and why does Jabotinsky put him in there? And he says very clearly at the beginning, this is a book in which I will tell you the history of the Russian Jews. He says it better than I just put it. Okay? So now we get a story that contains the entire history, not the rural history that we get in Tevye, the entire urban history of the Russian Jew. And it is a bust. Of course it's got to be a bust, because it's a Zionist and he wanted to live there. Okay, why is it a bust? And in which way is it a bust? And why should it be a bust? Because, you know, in St. Petersburg we had big railroad magnates, the Polyakovs and the Ginsburgs, and it wasn't a bust for them. Why is it a bust for these guys? Okay, Marco, what's wrong with this man? So gifted.
He's a Luftmensch.
A Luftmensch? No, he's not a Luftmensch. Okay, maybe he's a Luftmensch. Explain to me, Jonathan, how you mean Luftmensch.
I mean, he doesn't know what he's doing. He has all these ideals. He goes back and forth.
They call him a dimwit.
Yeah.
Not too smart.
Okay. Yeah. More?
Maybe a dreamer?
He was a dreamer, yeah.
Many enthusiasms.
Exactly. Enthusiasm, who said that? Was that you, David? Okay, enthusiasm is great. Okay, how is enthusiasm bad? Enthusiasm is good. We're on enthusiasm.
Well, he's completely unfocused.
Unfocused, enthusiasm, unfocused. He doesn't apply himself. It's like an American child, okay? They run after everything, okay? And he gets, and this is what's extraordinary, everybody gets the death they deserve. What's his death? He's an enthusiast. He runs after every bell, it's called, okay? So you ring a bell, and whether it's Sanskrit or whatever he's doing, okay? He's an enthusiast. What does he, an enthusiast is someone who's filled with spirit. I'm an enthusiast. Absolutely. I get very enthused and fired up. But this guy doesn't even get fired up. He doesn't do the work. Okay? You can be an enthusiast, but then you've got to buckle down and you transform talent into skill. And he doesn't do that. He doesn't work. He doesn't do the work. How does he die?
trying
fell
to save
asleep.
someone. and-
Runs off the-
Yeah, in the ice.
She's saving an imaginary woman.
Yeah.
No, the woman is not imaginary.
Okay, but his,
But he doesn't.
But what he hears, there is somebody on the other side. So out of his goodness, nobody would deny that he's not a good human being. Out of his goodness, he goes after his death. And he drowns, okay? So our guy drowns. This guy drowns. Okay, next one. Lydia, what's with her? Wow,
She's rebellious.
what a fate. Okay, what's with her?
Dark memories, black memories.
Yeah.
She's an evil person.
she's.
No.
No, but
No.
she's a fanatic.
She's a fanatic. Okay, we got one enthusiast and now we got a fanatic. Okay, what's a fanatic? How's a fanatic different from an enthusiast?
Crazed.
It's hyper-focused.
Right. Okay, so she's hyper-focused. She's the opposite of Marco, so she's hyper-focused. Okay. What's she lacking?
Heart. She has no heart.
She got no heart.
Empathy.
Okay, so this one's got too much heart here, which is why he drowns. And this one has no heart. Okay, and what does he do? Now, could you connect this to Bubble, please, because you read all of that. Isn't it like, I mean, doesn't Bubble jump right out of you? That is, when we be reading the revolutionary poem, she is made of steel. Steel, Zhenya, let's jump in here. Steel is the major metaphor of the revolutionary poetry. She's a woman made out of steel. What?
Like Stalin, right?
Yeah, maybe.
She's never
Made out of steel, she has got absolutely no love for her family. It's astonishing. And that is precisely what fueled the revolution. I mean, we talked about it sometimes, the kids, just like Nazism, you know, the kids turning against the parents, that the revolution, the cause, overrules your loyalty to the family. So she is the ultimate, she is avant la lettre, the revolutionary avant la lettre. David, did you want to jump in here?
Well, that's the connection to Babel, is that the Red Cavalry stories are equally heartless.
Absolutely. That is the heartlessness that you need in order to put the cause above your family. And that is a big no-no for the Jews. Zhenya.
I read it in Russian, and I don't know if you feel it in English translation. This book written with a lot, with extraordinary sympathy.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You can feel that.
Yeah, I don't know why I have the Russian version. So it's so sentimental. And when I read about, I mean, I knew who Zhabotinsky is, I didn't know that he wrote. And there is some introduction in Russian that the editor was surprised how non-political this book is.
Oh, I think the book is extremely
Yeah.
political.
I think that it's, you might be looking into something which doesn't exist. You might.
That's a pretty face.
It's written with extraordinary sympathy.
Right.
And I read it completely differently versus you.
Oh,
I read
okay.
this that, yes, he tries to understand how the Jews in Russia happen to be in the place where they are. And it's really with kind of a pain maybe. It's not the, you put it as analysis, this is this direction, this is that direction. I don't think that's the case. Babel is much more calculated. His language is beautiful, but
Absolutely.
this, in Babel, it's just,
All right.
there's so much love.
Let's try to persuade Zhenya that this is a symbolic history of Russian Jewish assimilation which failed.
Yeah,
That is my thesis, that this is a book about why it makes no sense to live in Russia, because whatever tack you go, you will ultimately fail. That's my thesis. Zhenya read it completely differently, read it in Russian. The other Zhenya also read it in Russian, and I remember you're telling me it is so funny. Remember at the beginning when you just started the book, you said, oh, the language is with it, the language is funny. He loved the Russian language. Zhenya tells us that the impression that he gets is sentimental, love for the people. I am not denying
No,
that.
no,
I think we all love Seryosha. There is no way you cannot love Seryosha. I even love Marco. I love Lydia. I enjoy when she appears beautiful. Okay,
With
let's go.
gloves.
Let's go
With
to the
her gloves.
Achilles heel, right? Let's go to what is her Achilles heel, because she too is honorable like they all are. She is truly in love with this guy, okay? There is love even in her, which shows that even the steeliness of a revolutionary can be pierced by, I don't know, the testosterone level of whoever she sees, when she is someone who is extraordinarily beautiful. But even the good life, and her beauty, and the admiration, and all of that she's getting, cannot corrupt her to desert the cause. I mean, that is the kind of fanaticism, and I think when you look at the poems of Terence Markish, for example, poems for which he got the Stalin Prize, they are extraordinary steely. We'll be reading some of them. So we will go back to this idea of Lydia, because she is a type. Okay, Zhenya will object.
So, I don't know if you can appreciate it. When I read this book, I thought about the Halevi book, like Dreams.
You will,
About the book of which Halevi wrote,
Oh, yes.
Like Dreams.
yes.
So 1967, what happened with these people, how they went to war.
Right,
I don't know why, but when I read it, I thought about the same. So
interesting.
how the development of the events and the history broke people apart. And
That
that
also-
book written with enormous love as well.
Right.
So it's just, that's how I look at it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go put these other guys on the board, so we just have the grid, and then we can see what we do with it, and go put Babel on top of that. So what's with the our next character? How about Maruzia? What about her? I mean, you cannot accuse. So I got this in Russian as only about in English. Okay, Maruzia. What's with her? You cannot accuse her of lack of love.
No,
All right. So what's with this one?
no, she was,
No?
well, I thought she was, well, I was in love with her.
Oh,
But everybody was
I
in
think
love with
everybody
her.
is.
Yeah,
I
there's-
think everybody is, until you figure out what. She too is a Marco type, right?
Yeah.
She is full of affection. I mean, so here we have someone who is full of affection. I would say she's very affectionate,
Mhm.
right? To the fault that she has all these affairs. You don't really figure this out, but the guys who come to see her, the sightseers, those are her lovers, right?
Right.
The mother sits there and says, oh, okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know about that. Okay, so at this point, you're beginning to think of the mother is Anna Mikhailovna, and the father is, wonderful name, Ignaz Albertovich. And he reads German newspapers. So we get here a little bit of the Haskalah, because we know Odessa, founded in 1794, was actually really settled Jewishly by the German Jews who came from Brody. I mean, Austrian Jews, Galician Jews really, but German speaking. And the first layer of Jewish culture in Odessa was German speaking. The schools were German speaking, and that is where he comes from. So we get this layer of late 18th century, early 19th century, brought in with this Ignaz Albertovich. And on top of that, and once you get to be part of the Haskalah, you're not really grounded in religion anymore. You're not really grounded in history anymore, which is basically why these kids go up. You never hear them talk about religion. They don't go to Sunday school. They don't go to shul. You never hear anything. They don't read anything. They have no Jewish education at all. There's nothing there. Okay,
Well, one
so,
of them did. Was it more?
Torik.
Oh,
Okay,
Torik.
we'll talk about Torik. Okay, we'll talk about Torik. All right, we come to Torik. Maruzia. So what's with her and what's her punishment? So she's very affectionate. She's got all these people on whom she shines like a sun, and they're enjoying it. She's emotional. She's wonderful. She's wonderful. And what does her mom do? Okay, thinking of Tevye, please. She picks out somebody for her, right? And who does she pick out? A cousin. Kazadoy. From Commentary Magazine. Remember when Kazadoy was editing Commentary Magazine? Kazadoy. Samuilo. Kazadoy. You know, how can somebody be called Kazadoy? It says in the novel. I'm not saying this. The novel says that.
Nevich.
Huh?
Nevich.
A nebbish. No, not a nebbish. He's a hard worker. He's exactly that which
Okay.
Marco doesn't have. He works hard. He works himself up, from a lowly position to running a pharmacy. That's not nothing. That's not nothing. And he runs a pharmacy, and he is a steady guy. Okay, and that's why the mother loves it, because she thinks if she marries this Maruzia off to a steady guy, something will come of it. Okay, so she gets married to this Kazadoy. Okay, Samuel Kazadoy. Oh, she's got my initials, I'm sorry to say. Okay, Kazadoy. Okay, so married to the Kaza. And then what happens? The spark goes out.
Are you implying that that what she ends up doing to protect her child is really a suicide?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Really?
That is exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Because my evidence is, okay, so she becomes a mom, and she is the best mom going. She loves being a mom, and she's got the 2 kids, and she loves her kids and all of that. Okay, please can you think of Betty Friedan way back when, 1963? Okay, I think that dates us a little bit. I mean, I was, I don't know, 4 years old or something when she published her book, but still. So she is the ultimate mom, and an ultimate mom. She has 2 kids and she loves them. And then she writes a letter to our narrator. And in that letter she says, okay, can you just come and talk to me? I can't stand it anymore.
I need help.
Okay, I'm at the end of my tether. It is so boring here. I just can't take it. Come, please, for a week and just come to see me. I've got to talk to you. Okay, and then she's doing this milk thing, and she's so conscientious that she boils the milk 3 times. We're buying unpasteurized milk now because we want to be organic. Okay, back then, okay, actually don't do this, guys. We see unpasteurized, don't buy it. Okay, like pass it by at Whole Foods, unpasteurized cheese, because you may have to boil it 3 times, and then you know what happens. Okay, so what I am saying is that she closes the door, not because she doesn't want her child to see that she's burning up, because she doesn't want to be saved. And then she's so considerate that they don't have to break down the door. She throws the key out. So by the time they find the key, she's definitely dead. Okay, yes, I do argue that this is a suicide. Okay.
Can you want to explain why she married him in the first place?
Because she wanted to be nice to her mom, and because she felt it was to save herself, because she knows herself. She felt this was her best chance, to survive. And then in the end, she couldn't take it. Yeah. Okay, so that's my, okay. Oh, we forgot to say about her fate. So she burns up. So 1 drowned, 1 burned.
She's executed.
And this one disappears, yeah, in the underground. She becomes, after she's come out in radiant beauty, the opposite happens to her. The underground swallows her up. Okay, so she becomes anonymous.
But then doesn't she disappear from the prison?
No, she disappears in the Paris underground. I mean, she's in Paris at the time. When we leave her, she's in Paris.
At one point, they put her in jail.
They put her in jail, but she gets liberated. As it
got
happens for many people, they get, the poet Leivik was exiled to Siberia, and then the Jewish underground got him out. So this happens all the time, that you could get freed, and those early revolutionary actually made it out of exile.
I'm still biting her nails though.
Yeah,
Can't
biting.
wear gloves.
Yeah, biting her nails. I'm trying to think which poet was also doing that. I can't think of it now. Okay, our Seryosha. Gosh, I was so in love with Seryosha, I must say. Okay, Seryosha or Sergei. What's with Seryosha? Wow,
He's
what a
absolutely
guy.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
And everybody adores him.
Everybody adores him. Wow.
But he's amoral.
He's a con man.
A con man, yeah. He's brilliant, and he's got no moral grounding. And he's in some way a form of Marco, isn't he? Marco just doesn't have the wit.
no discipline either.
Yeah, no discipline at all. A narcissist, enjoying himself. So what would you say is his, Yoshan? Brilliant, immoral, brilliant narcissism?
Completely jaded.
What is his major sentence? Which is actually brilliant conception by Jabotinsky. Jabotinsky nails this guy in one question. But why is it forbidden? Okay? Which is a brilliant Talmudic question. Any Talmud student in Chavrusa would tell you, okay, Rabbi so-and-so ruled that, you got to do blah-de-blah-de-blah, and then somebody says, but why is it forbidden? Inviting an answer that will then explain in another brilliant fashion why it should be forbidden. And that is brilliant in a certain analytic tradition, but without any answer to why something is forbidden. Why doesn't he have an answer? And what would a possible answer be? So that is where the analysis of Jabotinsky's comes in. How can you answer this question? For instance, okay, mixing milk and meat, you shouldn't boil a kid in the milk of its mom. But why is it forbidden? Okay, now you're coming, but the dietary laws, and this health reason, the other reason is not relevant. The reason is you're committed to the group. That is the reason. Okay? It doesn't matter what the rationale is. The reason is you want to be part of the group, you keep kosher. You don't want to be part of the group, okay, get something. Hey, nobody says you need to be part of the group. Because the answer is it is forbidden because the group says so. And he cannot accept that because he cannot submit to authority. That is his problem. And if you cannot submit to authority, you don't have the discipline to function within a group. You have no morals. That's what we call morals. Moral really is that you behave within the bounds of a group. Whatever the group says the laws are, that is what you accept. That is what a group is.
But by the nature, he's a gamer. And as a
He's
gamer,
sure,
as a smart
risks.
gamer, and as a gamer, there is no rules and there's no morality for him.
I would say that the gamers, that is what a gamer is. The gamer knows all the rules
And
and
goes
then
around.
goes against them. That's what we call an epicurus. Okay? The gamer knows all the rules, otherwise you cannot be a gamer, because that's what the fun of it is, that you know the rules, and then you think, they don't apply to me. Okay, they apply to everybody else, but they do not apply to me.
And sometimes he says, oh, well, okay, for you I'll do it. For you I'll do it.
Exactly, because he's also a very nice guy, and he's extremely charming, and that's why we love him. Okay, what's his punishment? And then he does this amazing thing. Makes love to the mother and the daughter at the same time, which is, oh my gosh, it is fantastic. I wish I had thought of this. I mean, what a plot. I'm talking, I don't know, this
There's a mother and
society.
daughter who look alike and say the same thing.
Where
They're indistinguishable.
are these people coming from? And he gets caught by the husband, and what's the punishment?
He put...
Acid in the face, he's blinded. Okay? For him, who is so keen in his eyesight, it's amazing. Just in one sentence, okay, Jabotinsky could capture this guy, but why is it forbidden? And in the weakest spot that he has, just as Lydia's weakest spot was that she was susceptible to maleness, to this extraordinary Italian maleness. In this case, the eyes get taken out and he is finished. That's his Achilles heel, so he's blinded. Okay, so this our gamer is blinded. It's extraordinary, no? One drowned, one burned, one lost. Okay, and now we got Victor, Victor the victorious. Amazing, no? Victor Torek.
Yeah.
All right, what's with him? You cannot say he's not disciplined. You cannot say he's working hard. You cannot say he doesn't have a goal. You cannot say that he isn't obedient to his mother and father. He's goody two shoes. He's like, by the way, remember Balaam, who does everything that her dad wants her to do? Okay, so we are the fifth daughter, we're the fifth, in this case, the fifth child. I really think that's just very similar to, yes, I'm just on that, insist on that. Okay, but of course you can think whatever you want. Why should it be forbidden? So now, Torek. Am we convincing you a little bit more?
Yeah.
Zhenya? No. Okay. All right, Torek.
He studies Talmud.
He studies everything. Yeah, finance. Just like Bob, he went to finance school. Yeah, Bob went to business school. Is that stunning or what? Okay, Tarek, we gotta go to Bob now. So let me know about Tarek. What's wrong with him?
He wants to succeed.
Yeah.
And
He'll do
there's
anything to do that.
nothing in his background to convince him that anything is more important than success.
Yeah. Okay. And he says, okay, he's very analytical. He's totally logical. Okay, he's totally logical. He functions totally around the society. He's a gamer. He just absolutely knows how this stuff works. And he says, okay, if I want to succeed, I got to become like them. Okay, so I'm going to convert. Okay, so he converts. So that's the 5 of 5 kids. Not a 1. Not a 1.
No nervous.
Not a 1. No Kaddish, no nothing.
Is it too simplistic to say, Tevye, poverty, the kids do what they do? Here, they start out having the whole thing.
Yeah, look at
They
this.
end
Look
well,
at this.
so whether you're rich, you're poor, the Jews don't belong.
Well, you could say that they could have made some other choices, could they not?
They could have gone to.
They could have made some other choices. These are not the only choices, which Virginia comes in, you
The
know?
only choice for them was to either go to Palestine or to the United States.
Yeah,
They
or to
didn't
the
have any
United
choices,
States, or
and
to
the history
Paris,
showed
or
that.
you become a teacher. Work
But
at something.
that's-
You know, I
The
mean,
revolution came, it's all gone.
there's,
So if you want to remain Jewish, you have only 2 choices.
absolutely, there are other choices, but those were, you would say, the choices that he could observe most of in this environment. And of course, and this is why I'm saying it's a political novel, you get manipulated into thinking what else they could have done. And for Jabotinsky, in 1936, and this leads me to David's story, because David has a story. What Jabotinsky was doing in 1936 was going around and saying to Polish and Romanian and Bulgarian Jews, get out now, our border is good. So David, tell us about your story.
Briefly, my father was joined Beitar and became a leader in his town. He was the captain of Beitar in his town, and, which was near Lublin. A group of his fellow town captains went to Lublin to hear Jabotinsky speak, and afterwards they had a brief meeting with him. Just that group of leaders, and his message was, we have to get out fast, as quickly as possible. And this was in 36. In 39, my father caught the last ship to leave Europe before the war broke out. So Jabotinsky saved his life.
And that's what Jabotinsky was doing mainly through 1938, because he was going into Eastern Europe, from community to community, and trying to infect with his speech, with his power, with his rhetoric, as many people as he could, and said, you need to go live now.
Beitar was a paramilitary organization.
Absolutely, yeah, and you know, and they were criminals too. I mean, you know, they were Jews with guns, and they were Jews with guns who committed serious crimes. Okay, we're back to the rabbi poem. Okay, a Jew with a gun will commit a crime, and we're gonna have to deal with it. But whatever would justify such a crime, that is the problem that we're having. And that is a problem, that is the line that goes from the Bialik poem to your father's poem, can I say that? To arriving in Palestine, to dealing with the people here, to the rabbi's poem. It is really complicated.
Just as a final note, my father joined Lefty starting game when he got to Palestine. So he was on the far right end of the resistance to the British and the Arabs.
Well, okay. Babel, he didn't go. He stayed where he was. He made decisions, okay? He went to finance school, he went to business school, he graduated business school. In 1916, he went to Petrograd at that time, okay, later Leningrad, before that St. Petersburg. He met Gorky. He was a writer on the make. He was 22 years old. Gorky was 48. Gorky was famous. Babel was not. And, you know, he latched on, and Babel and Gorky was in love with somebody Jewish, and this guy was a very Jewish guy. He published his stories. in the war was still on, First World War, Babel goes and joins the army on the Romanian front. We are in October 1917 now. Revolution, of course, breaks out. He can see that the front is collapsing, of course, because once you have a revolution, military is not going to go function too well. He left the front. Nobody says he was a deserter, but he left the collapsing front, and he goes back to St. Petersburg, and the journey is described in the journey. You have this journey. And he finds his way back, and he goes to work for the Cheka. That's a secret police. Okay, that's your problem. He only worked there for a little while.
What year did he work for the secret police?
He was for the Cheka as a translator. That's a secret police. That's the guy the guys who don't want to show up at your doorstep.
No,
In 1918.
1918.
In 1918, right after he takes this journey, you actually get a description of that. And in fact, I looked at the map to see where this Admiralty was, and when he describes, he goes down Nevsky Prospect, where this old bridge was. So I had to find this. It's actually pretty accurate the way he describes it. But they didn't find this other guy on the Cheka list, and now we can really look at all the documents. All right, the stories that he writes are written within a very short period of each other. He starts 1923, 1924 to write the first autobiographical stories. He writes the Red Cavalry. Gorky also gets him a job on the Red Cavalry, so he goes as a journalist. So he goes and he's only with the Red Cavalry for about 3 months. June to September. And he comes home and he's very sick. He gets asthma. He has lifelong asthma. So the party says to him, okay, you got to go to a warmer climate, and he goes to Georgia. He lives in Georgia for a while, for about 4 years, and it is while he is not in Russia, but in Georgia, in a warm climate, near Baku, I think, that he writes all these stories. And when the Red Cavalry gets published in 1926, I have a picture of, I want to show you the Mokavanka. I'll show you the cover later. When he gets, we have Babel now, this is actually Babel at age 13, he becomes instant fame. The Red Cavalry story gets published, instant fame, and then he writes only one more section, the Odessa stories, and they come afterwards. So these stories that you'll have in here are written within a period of about 3 years, and after that he writes nothing. He becomes a silent writer, and that's as scary as being a dissident writer, because that's also not liked. And then he gets arrested in 1939, has a trial, and he gets shot on January 27, 1940. This is the house where Babel lived in 1906. Remember, he comes from Nikolaev. There's a pogrom in Nikolaev, and he comes at age 11. He has 2 aunts who live in that house, and his grandmother, and that is the Tirasvolskaya street. This is where he lives in 1906. He moved into another section. This is actually what a map of Odessa looks like. So they're very nice streets, Bazanaya, and are all in this section, and the staircase goes down here to this harbor. And Peresip, Novaya Slobodka, and Moldavanka, those are working class districts. Those are the districts, am I right, Virginia? Okay, that Bob is writing about, and this is what this looks like a couple of years ago in the Moldavanka. So it's very different from what we saw in Pushkinskaya. And here's another one in the Moldavanka. This is a Benya Creek kind of house. And the last one from the Moldavanka looks like that. Okay, so now the other, what I didn't show you yet, the other section that's really important about Odessa is what takes place on the coast. We did not talk about the coast. Bolshoi Fontan, Sredny Fontan are very important. This is what the coast looks like. This is Bolshoi Fontan. So when they're climbing up the cliffs, that is what this looks like. And here's another one. I think this is Sredny Fontan. These are all period pictures. This is about 1905, and this is what it looks like today. Bolshoi Fontan, Velezhnaya Street. And here, okay, what do you think a dacha looks like, by the way, in Bolshoi Fontan? Any idea? What in your mind's eye, what do you see?
Not extravagant.
Huh?
Not extravagant.
Not extreme.
Not extravagant, she said.
Okay, that's it.
Oh.
Whoa, yeah. Bratski's dacha on Franzuski Boulevard, okay? Brodsky lives here. And here is, now I can't even say this word. Mavro Cordato. Okay, woo, okay, that's a dacha, okay, in Baljoy Fontan. And here's another dacha, Ashkenazi dacha on Francuski Boulevard. Okay, I'll read this one on. So this is what a dacha looks like. Dacha is really villa in Baljoy Fontan. Okay, that is not Moldavanka. Okay, now we got a Moldavanka. Now you gotta go switch to Pablo. Okay, what's with Pablo? I set my timer for 9:25. When it rings, we have 5 minutes. That would be very soon. Okay, so Pablo, what bothered you? At least I know you're bothered. What were you bothered? This bothered me so much that I spent more time on this than on anything else because I just really was bothered.
It's just find it very, very disturbing. Every story,
Every story is disturbing. Every one. There's not a one where you say, nice.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Although I like that he was the thing about taking violin. Wasn't he when he took the violin lessons?
Oh, and he doesn't want to take the violin lessons, right? And he goes to Baljoy Fontan and he puts it in the sand and he says, okay, the pebbles, but we're just going to call it sand, and he climbs up and down. Yeah, that's that one.
But the thing, it was so much grounded in something I know that because he all of I am now taking again, yes, after 53 years. Anyway, that he was all the famous violinists.
Yeah.
Had studied
I've
with
Michel, yeah,
and
sure.
with Zimbalist.
Yeah, Zimbalist, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, Michel is my
So I mean that was I think the only thing I liked.
Okay. All right, but he doesn't like to play the violin.
No, he
He's
doesn't,
looking for
no.
the violin. Okay, so, all right, so we don't have something like that. Okay.
What bothered me mostly about it is the stark violence. This very direct, matter-of-fact reporting of violence and slaughter. And reading along a perfectly normal story, sometimes even kind of funny or amusing,
Yeah.
or engaging
Yeah.
characters who do crazy things, and then all of a sudden, somebody's there with a knife, or throwing a dove in your face, or, the whole thing turns in just 1 or 2 sentences.
Right.
And
The
it's just
surprise
so
by
direct.
violence,
Yeah.
and there's no way you can escape that because you can't see it coming.
You can't see it
You
coming.
can't see it coming because it goes along well. Okay, Virginia, help us with that. How was this read while you were going to school? Also not. Okay, so why is that? He was rehabilitated in 1954.
Was, but first he was Jewish.
That's
Yeah,
right.
he
One
was.
strike against it
And
already.
stories, so he was not forbidden, but you couldn't get his book. It was not
Wow. That's right, the first complete edition comes out in 1990. Before that, it's just a couple of censored books. So this also, was this as Samisek going around a little bit?
Not really, because he was a way pro-Soviet, but in a strange way.
In a strange, I think that is the key. It's pro-Soviet, but in a strange way. Because through the back door, he brings in back the Jews. Think of the story of Gedali, okay, where he visits this Jewish shop owner, even implies Dickens at some point, Dickens would have at that time. He goes there and he visits him and he has a conversation with him. And you come back out of the story, it's actually one of the less violent ones. You come back out of the story thinking, yeah, this rabbi is right, the revolution has nothing, it's about what kind of revolution for the Jews. And he says, the revolution comes with guns. What do you, and I said, so do you have other Jewish cookies here? Can we get Jewish cookies and Jewish tea? And he says, no, you can't, because next door is no one there. And then they talk about the revolution, and he says, what do you eat the revolution with? Gunpowder. Yeah. And then he says, well, that's not my he says, we love the revolution. Why does the Gedali love the revolution? Because the revolution beats up the Poles, and because it forces you to beat up the Jews. So that's nice about the revolution. But the revolution comes with guns, and we don't like that. We love the revolution, we give them the gramophones, we are educated people, but he doesn't trust that. So you come out of that story, and this is following up on what Virginia was just saying, you come out of the story thinking, yeah, that appears to be a pro-Soviet guy, but everything you read turns you against the revolution because of the violence. Do we read this too Western? Is this a...
Yes,
Okay.
yes, a couple of things. First, there were rumors which were never confirmed. I read a few things here.
Sure.
I think it was a certain anniversary from his death. And I found the internet, it was a big discussion a couple of years ago about him, about his literature
Right.
and about his personality. So there was underground theme that he possibly worked for KGB,
Sure.
whatever. So it was very strange things about his biography. Like, Stalin clearly didn't like him, as well as like Bulgarian, and still he went abroad in the 30s for a long time. He couldn't get abroad and Stalin unless he worked for KGB. It was impossible. I think what
In the
kills
last few, and even in the last few years of his life, he had a dacha in Teredelko, I think.
Yeah. He
I mean,
got
it was extraordinary, totally unexpected. He had an affair with Yezhov's wife, which was like absolutely like playing with fire. I'm sorry, so we have 5 minutes, okay, because I have to, I'm under strict orders to let you go at 9:30. So it is an extraordinarily complex biography, which is not straight at all. It is a man, it appears to be a man who's playing with fire.
Exactly.
Who wants the pain of suffering, who comes so close to the fire as if he is inviting the fire to catch him. And in the
he's
end,
like Aaron's sons who came close. It's just, he was confused.
absolutely.
And I think what people in the 90s when he started being published like about him is Jewish feeling of Odessa.
Right.
But it's still too violent. So I think that was part of his fame in the 30s and the 20s, that time the revolution should come with violence
Right.
against the enemies.
Right.
And that was
Which
his
is
fame.
prepared by the Lydia character in Jabotinsky. So I think that is really where the
I
connection
think
is.
it was very, just the Red Army, it's all so violent. I think that's
And there's
why
a theory.
it bothers you at all. And this Jewishness and violence at the same time is very unusual.
Back to the gun. Because that was the opposite of what the Jews were associated with. Think about my first goose, okay? Which is really a metaphor for a rape, okay? Because he can get acceptance by the guys, by Cossacks, if he commits an act of violence. Smart guy that he is, Yutov, he doesn't want to rape this woman, but he does the next bit, that's why it's called my first goose, okay? He never works even in Russian. With a phallic symbol, he pierces her, okay, and crushes the head, which is exactly what Makarenko does to him before. So we have a rape here in a very smart way, a rape that is not a rape, in order to get acceptance. That is not what we normally associate with Jewish behavior. Jews and guns doesn't match, Jews and violence doesn't match. But here says, in order to get acceptance, that is his rite of passage. Okay, on that note, I will have to let you go. That is depressing. So, yeah. Thanks to Rabbi Ganschwartz, who really set us on the right course here. Jews and guns was our subject, and we have not solved it. So, I'll see you with Moshe Pulbach, a wonderful writer, very funny writer, who had no guns.